Welcome to the First Unitarian Society of Madison. My name is Kelly Crocker, and I'm one of the ministers here. Today, I'm joined by my colleague, the Reverend Kelly Asprooth-Jackson, and by the worship team of Linda Warren, Drew Collins, Stephen Gregorius, and Daniel Carnes. A thank you to all those who are volunteering this morning. Our greeters were Ann Smiley and Norm Schulman. Our hospitality makers are Amanda Clarahan, Barb Avery, and Isa Garusi. And our ushers are Alyssa Ryanjoy, Daniel Bradley, and Roberta Carnes. Thank you all. At First Unitarian Society, we question boldly, listen humbly, grow spiritually, act courageously, and love unapologetically. If you're visiting us today, welcome. We're so very glad that you are with us. If you'd like more information about the congregation, please stop by the welcome table, which is right out in the commons. It is next to the elevator. We also hope that you'll be able to stay and join us for coffee hour immediately after the service, which is also right out in the commons. And for those of you connecting with us virtually today, welcome to you as well. We're so very glad that you're with us. We hope you'll be able to watch the announcement slides shown briefly after the service to find out more about what's happening here at First Unitarian. Our second and third grade class, Moral Tales, they are exploring welcoming all today as their theme. So during coffee hour, they will be practicing their tools of welcome and inclusion. So we are inviting you to practice your tools of welcome and inclusion by welcoming and greeting and talking with our second and third graders after service in coffee hour today. Next Saturday, February 21st, we will be hosting the Potluck for People, Peace, and Planet, organized by Building Unity. That will begin at 6 p.m. with a panel discussion on responses to federal immigration enforcement with local civic leaders to follow at 7 p.m. And 2 weeks from yesterday, on Saturday the 28th, we will be hosting the annual Starlings Volleyball Pasta Dinner fundraiser. So if you'd like to know more about the Starlings or about the fundraiser, Lori Schwartz will be here after service and would love to talk to you. So you could have your next 2 Saturday night dinners planned. The potluck next week, the Volleyball Starlings fundraiser the following week. Get your Saturdays booked. And now, I invite you to join together in a moment of silence as we center ourselves and bring ourselves fully into this time, joining together once again in community. From our very first breath, we reach out. Co-regulation, not self-regulation, is in our nature.
We find our cues from the sun and the moon, from each parent and caregiver. We find our place in this great turning planet by turning to one another.
Generation to generation, we awaken to the dawn and fall asleep at the evening's end. Our life's journey is part of something greater, something simple, something divine.
A flame cannot be lit without a spark. A life cannot begin without the air, and we cannot begin to find ourselves without love.
May we reach out to one another. May we offer love and nurturing care. May we join together in celebration of the interdependence of our lives. In this spirit, let us worship together. And we invite you now to rise in all the ways we do. joining together in the words on the screen as we kindle our chalice. Let this light be a symbol of all the sources of our spiritual inspiration, the direct experiences of transcending mystery and wonder, which open our hearts, renew our spirits, and transform our lives. The sacred, secular, and scientific understandings that help us make meaning and live into our values. Grateful for all that moves us, mindful of the ancestries we inherit, and enriched by the diversity of our faith. May we ever deepen and expand our wisdom. And before we join together in song, we invite you to take a moment to turn and greet your neighbors.
Good morning. Let's sing together, and our hymnals are on the screen. Our opening hymn, number 86, Blessed Spirit of My Life.
I'd like to invite forward now anybody who wants to come up and join me for a story this morning. Hello. Hi. Thanks for coming up. Good morning. How are you? Good. Good to see you. You know, a lot of the time when I have a story for you, it's very old, right? This one is going to be a more recent story. So instead of like a long time ago and a faraway place, this is a story that maybe could happen today, in fact. And in this story, we have two characters. We have a mom and we have her daughter. The daughter is a grown-up. She's not a child anymore. And she's going through a very, very, very hard thing in her life. Have you ever been through something really hard? Like you didn't know how you were going to solve your problem, and you didn't know how you should feel about it, and it just made you feel upset. Has you ever had that experience before?
Yeah.
It's okay if you haven't. I mean, I'm not encouraging you to have had, but if you have, yeah, I have personally too. I have been in a place like that. So that's what the daughter was going through, something really hard. And her mom was trying to help her out. You know, there's sort of two different ways to help somebody out, right? You can help them figure out how to solve their problem. Let's think about this critically. Let's think about what the solution might be, what sort of plan we're going to make. But there's also helping a person with just the feelings that they have about their problem. Because sometimes the feelings that we have can be even bigger than the problem that caused them. So the mom said, "Here, come into the kitchen with me. I want to show you something." And she put 3 pots on the stove. She filled them with water, and she set them to boiling so that the water was bubbling and very, very hot. And then in the first pot, she put some potatoes. Yeah, potatoes. Boy, get ready, because there's even more to come. In the second pot, she put some eggs. Okay? All right? I don't either. But that's okay, because actually you don't have to eat them. It's just part of the story. And then in the third pot, she put some ground up coffee beans. And speaking of things that we may or may not like, I need to warn you that for the premise of this story, we have to imagine that coffee tastes good. That's easier for some of us than others, which is okay. Both opinions are allowed, but for the purpose of this story, we have to imagine that coffee is a thing that the people in this story like to drink. So, after a while, they'd been boiling for some time. Mom turned off all of the burners. She let the water cool down. She poured the water out of each of the pots. She took 1 bowl full of the potatoes that had been boiling in the water, 1 bowl full of the eggs that had been boiling in the water, and then 1 cup full of the coffee that had been boiled in the water. Yeah. Boy, I'm doing real well here. I'm like full of surprises. Yeah. So she said to her daughter, "What do you see? What do you see in front of you?" And she said, "Well, I see potatoes and eggs and coffee, Mom. I don't see the point of this." She said, "Okay, well, yeah. Well, take a closer look, though. What do you see when you take a closer look? Like try touching one of the potatoes. Well, have you ever had a potato that's been boiled for a long time? You know what happens to it? It gets really soft, right? Like you can press on it, and your finger will just go in as far as you care to press into it. And have you ever had an egg that's been boiled for a while? Do you know what happens then? It becomes a hard-boiled egg, right? You can peel the shell off of it, and it's solid on the inside where it used to be a liquid before. You like eggs. That is also allowed, yes. And then she tried the eggs. She was like, okay, it's solid on the inside now. And then she tried a little bit of the coffee. And again, remember, in this story, the people in it like coffee. So she enjoyed the taste of the coffee. It tasted good to her. So the mom said, here's what I want you to take from this. All of these 3 things, they had the same experience. They were both boiled. All 3 of them were boiled in water for the same amount of time. And sometimes, the same thing has different impacts on different people. Right? The same sort of problem, the same kind of trial or hardship or thing that's just really tough to deal with, it can make you softer, like the potatoes. It can make you harder, like the eggs. Or it could make you into something totally new, like the coffee, right? There were coffee grounds in the water, and then the water that I took out was coffee instead of water anymore. And that's okay. That's okay. Sometimes we have the different response to the same things. And there are times in life when it's good to be softened. Times in life when it's good to get more gentle and receptive and open to being impacted by the world. And sometimes it's okay to be hardened a little bit, to get tougher, to be able to have the strength to endure something that's very difficult. But the goal in life is to be transformed when we can be into something beautiful and new and delicious. So that was the mom's hope for her daughter, right? That going through this hard thing in her life could transform her into something beautiful. Thank you so much for listening to my story. Now we're going to sing in your classes.
Now I invite us all to once again rise in body and or in spirit so we can sing hymn number 18, What Wondrous Love.
Our inspiration today is from the poet Jane Hirschfield. This was once a love poem. Before its haunches thickened, its breath grew short, before it found itself sitting, perplexed and a little embarrassed, on the fender of a parked car, while many people passed by without turning their heads. It remembers itself dressing as if for a great engagement. It remembers choosing these shoes, this scarf or tie. Once it drank beer for breakfast, drifted its feet in a river side by side with the feet of another. Once it pretended shyness, then grew truly shy, dropping its head so the hair would fall forward so the eyes would not be seen. It spoke with passion of history, of art. It was lovely then, this poem. Under its chin, no fold of skin softened. Behind the knees, no pad of yellow fat. What it knew in the morning, it still believed at nightfall. An unconjured confidence lifted its eyebrows, its cheeks. The longing has not diminished. Still, it understands. It is time to consider a cat, the cultivation of African violets or flowering cactus. Yes, it decides, many miniature cacti in blue and red painted pots. When it finds itself disquieted by the pure and unfamiliar silence of its new life, it will touch them, one, then another, with a single finger outstretched like a tiny flame.
There's a story, or a small family of stories, native to the British Isles, especially to coastal Scotland and Ireland, about a creature called a selkie. The selkie is a seal with the ability to transform into a human being, almost always by peeling off its skin like a seal-shaped wetsuit and revealing a human body underneath. In most of the stories where a selkie appears, some poor, non-magical soul falls in love with the changeable creature. Usually, a marriage follows, often children. Some of these stories are about a selfish, greedy, destructive sort of love. In these, a mortal man, the possessive ones are always men in these stories, for reasons that I hope you understand. This figure captures a selkie's seal skin and gains a magical power over her, which he cruelly uses to force her to marry him. Other times, the marriage begins honestly and equally, but over time, the human partner grows resentful of the magical spouse's ability to change shape and hides or destroys the seal skin. Those stories are about an obsessive perversion of love that treats the supposedly beloved like an object instead of as a person unto themselves. But even in the other stories, where a human loves a selkie and a selkie loves a human right back, with no violence and no manipulation, the tale often does not end well. In one, a selkie wife begs her husband not to set out to sea in a storm. He does anyway, and his ship overturns. She transforms back into a seal in order to rescue him, but it means that she cannot be human again. She can never come home. These are stories about the sea and the complicated and painful relationship of the people who live alongside the sea. And they're stories about love, about change, and the complicated and sometimes painful relationships of the people who live alongside those forces as well. Love and change have a complex relationship. The feeling of love, or at least one of the many different feelings that we call love, may come with deep desire for the absence of change. Maybe that seems obvious. Many is the romantic relationship that does not survive the personal evolution of one partner or the other or both. But this can be even more true for our attachment to communities or to institutions. The feeling of loss or even betrayal when what is beloved stops feeling familiar can be profound. We are, in this era, as a nation, experiencing the consequences of such feelings of anger at a changing world when such feelings are stoked and weaponized rather than being solved. But as much as the attachment of love may make us unhappy with change in the beloved, love is also a powerful motivator to change. Here I am speaking of love as deep caring, engaged compassion, loving kindness. This sort of love is not at odds with romantic love or a love for one's home or community, but it is also potentially much broader than that. In the Buddhist tradition, cultivating such a love as this towards all other beings is a fundamental goal of all individual spiritual practice. The great Buddhist teacher Thich Nhat Hanh recounted that when he first began to teach in the West, he encountered a question that he had never expected or imagined. Is it all right to hug a Buddhist monk? This was not something that he was accustomed to from his native Vietnam. But reflecting on the question and the implied request, he decided that it was something that he wanted to be open to, both to share in a custom common among his new American friends and to show his real care for and appreciation of them. To help with this, he developed his own hugging meditation. Breathing in, I know my dear one is in my arms alive. Breathing out, they are so precious to me. Meeting the people that he wanted to connect with, where they were, and communicating his depth of feeling to them in a physical language that they naturally understood, required the monk to intentionally change. The author, educator, and social critic Bell Hooks wrote about why to her it was so important to approach love as an action or a category of actions rather than merely as a feeling. She said, we are often taught that we have no control over our feelings, yet most of us accept that we choose our actions, that intention and will inform what we do. We also accept that our actions have consequences. If we were constantly remembering that love is as love does, we would not use the word in a manner that devalues and degrades its meaning. The sensations of our feelings emerge organically in the interplay of the chemistry and biology of our bodies and the experiences that we have with them. And the actions we choose are the highest and best way of knowing what we truly feel, not just for others to know, but for we ourselves to actually observe and to understand our own character, our own hearts. If I wish to be a kind person, I must be kind in practice. If I wish to be loving towards those I profess to love, I must bear it out in my own words and my own deeds. Not holding myself or anyone else to an impossible standard of perfection, but also not relying on asserting my feelings as a defense against the consequences of my own choices. Love as a practice means taking loving actions, and that can often mean change. Perhaps because circumstances change, or the things that those whom we love need from us change, or because we learn better what caring looks like to the people we love. And learning itself is a form of change. Several years ago, amidst the first successes of the campaign for marriage equality in this country, our religious movement launched a national campaign for justice and social change grounded in our values as Unitarian Universalists. I sometimes summarize the foundational insight of our faith as being that the never-ending quest for truth and the ever-growing expression of love are not contradictions, but actually complements. That these two goals are the same project at their root. Now, the goal of truth and the faculty by which we seek it, reason, are both as desperately needed in our time as at any other era in human history. But reason does not motivate a mass movement in quite the same way that love does. And love, the sort of love which is brave enough to struggle and large enough to include all of the people who need it most, love is, at this moment in history, in even shorter supply than the truth itself. So our movement made love the center of our social justice campaign. Since that beginning, our signs, slogans, t-shirts, mainly in one very loud shade of yellow, have been out in the world in a big way, in support of marriage equality and other fundamental rights for bisexual, lesbian, and gay folks, campaigning for the basic dignity, safety, and security of transgender, genderqueer, and gender nonconforming people, pushing for compassionate, comprehensive immigration reform and an end to the exploitative consignment to the shadows for millions of people living in this country, and showing up, speaking up, and acting up in support of the still heartbreakingly controversial belief that Black lives matter, and against the emboldened voice of white nationalism in America. One of the advantages of our sometimes maligned color scheme is that at every major protest I have attended or watched video from or looked through pictures of in the past 2 decades, I have always found a gaggle or two of yellow shirts worn by Unitarian Universalists and our allies to declare that when the debate forces us to choose a side, we choose the side of love. It was a little less than a decade after this campaign began that an important change took place. When it started, the campaign's name was Standing on the Side of Love. And we worked and marched and made calls and wrote letters and occasionally chose to disobey the law and face arrest for it, all under that banner. It motivated a lot of people to take a side on profound issues of conscience and to make that position a public one, to take action. That's what the metaphor of standing was meant to convey. Standing up, standing with, standing for. A conscious, active choice in a society whose greatest evils depend only on our collective passivity and inaction. But that name was also flawed, because that metaphor could not speak to and for everyone. Specifically, it left out those for whom standing is not a physical possibility or an act of empowerment. It sent a message that spoke to certain bodies and not to others. And it left behind a host of people who are already left behind frequently by our ableist society, which fears disability so much it often treats disabled people as though they do not even exist. As a movement, we had sought to express the deep heart of our values in a few simple words. But the words we chose were not quite good enough to be worthy of what we were trying to express. So, we changed the words. Standing on the side of love became side with love. The phrase I find to be at least as motivating, radically more inclusive, and conveniently enough, more elegant and more simple. And this change of words was also the expression of our shared theology as Unitarian Universalists, and the way that it challenges the prevailing assumptions of the world we live in. Because the story of the Selkie is hardly a unique one. Through so much of Western culture, we encounter the fatalistic idea that to change is always weakness or folly or evidence that we must have been wrong in our essence from the very start. No confession, no apology, no admission that what went before could have been wrong in any way. That is the reigning ethos of power in America right now. But the practice of love that is wedded eternally to the search for truth has more courage in it than that. It does not fear to be changed, because it knows that love without the capacity to change becomes possessive, obsessive, empty, and ultimately evil. As a movement, we had a new banner for our work, and a great many of our congregations had to get literal new banners as well, just as I had to get a new stole. But those were glad changes, because they allowed us to become more completely and more lovingly ourselves. In Chinese folklore, there is another figure capable of changing their shape called White Snake Woman, who is a spirit who can appear naturally as both a snake and a human being. In the most common story about her, she falls in love with a mortal man who loves her in return, and the two become married. But at their wedding, there is a certain priest who can see that the White Snake Woman is a spirit rather than a regular person, and who believes, for that reason, that the love between them must be destroyed. First, he captures the husband and imprisons him. Though they are painfully and tragically separated, his wife is eventually able to free him through the use of her power to change her shape. They are reunited, and they start a family. So, the villain tries again, this time imprisoning the snake spirit who lived as a person. Her husband struggled mightily, but he had no magical power with which to free her. All that he did have was the persistence of his love, continuing to care for her though they were apart, just as he also now cared for and loved their child, whom he had to raise alone. The climax of the story comes when this child, now grown to adulthood and possessed of great wisdom and insight, manages to free the mother that they had never had the opportunity to know. Parent and child are reunited, and then the two parents are as well. White Snake Woman could change her shape, but the years could not change her. Her husband, on the other hand, was mortal and had aged considerably. Yet despite so much time having passed between them, they loved each other all the more. This past week, I got to speak with some of you about the changes that have been made about a year and a half ago to the part of the bylaws of our national association that describe Unitarian Universalism. Those changes were considerable, moving from a framework focused on principles to one which articulates values and attempts to outline the sorts of actions that those values call us to take. All change entails loss. And I know that some of us are still experiencing our own personal versions of loss from this change. But there is an insight that I want to lift up for us today, contained in this new articulation. This framework for explaining the vastness, complexity, and variety of our tradition begins with the premise that love is at the center of the faith we share. It is subject to interpretation, and this is only my opinion, but I would say that the love being spoken of as central to our shared tradition is loving kindness and engaged compassion towards others, towards ourselves, and toward the world of which we are a part. So from this center, love, emerge 6 other crucial values, natural consequences of love and its expression in the world. And one of these 6 values is transformation, our ongoing adaptation to a changing world. Love moves us to change, to grow, to evolve. We cannot practice love faithfully without a willingness to change.
And I invite you now into the giving and receiving of an offering This offering we give freely and generously supports the ongoing work of this community and the work of our outreach offering recipient. This week's recipient is Centro Hispano of Dane County. Centro's mission is to empower youth, strengthen families, and engage the community so that Latinx families reach their personal goals and feel engaged and strengthened with the tools for success. There's multiple ways to share your gifts. You'll see on the screen the text to give information and that you can donate directly from our website. And baskets will be passed here in the auditorium for cash or checks. We thank you for your generosity and for your faith in this life we create together. Each week we gather, bringing with us the joys and the losses of our days. We share them here, knowing they are held in love. We light a candle of grief and of love for the residents of Tumbler Ridge, British Columbia, where 9 people were killed this week in a mass shooting, including 6 children. The small community of 2,400 people is deeply shaken by this tragedy, which is sadly all too well known to us. We send our love, our strength, and our hopes for healing to them all. And we light a candle for all that lives in our hearts, the joys and the celebrations mingled with the sorrows. May we know that we are held in love. If you will join us now in a moment of prayer and contemplation with these words from Douglas Taylor. Gracious and loving God, from whom all things come and to whom all things return. We gather on the edge of another week, and for some of us on the edge of our strength. We come lifted by events of our week or weighed down by them, or we arrive in some paradoxical mix thereof. We are here in our gathering of hope and restoration. At times we come weary and worn down, and for some that is how we arrive today. At other times we come with questions, with a longing, or with something to offer. But for those who come today shattered, broken, lonely, lost, let us offer our prayer of resilience. Again this week we test the tender places in our hearts and in our lives to see what healing may occur. Gratitude is often a source of healing. We give thanks for the landscapes of grace in our lives, for music and for good companions, for the guidance of great principles and the examples of integrity around us. We give thanks for all that lifts us up and for lessons that lead us on. For the times when we are brought low by anxiety or adversity, show us the hidden wells of love we can tap into. Help us rise up once more, just once more, and once more again will surely be enough. Remind us we do not strive in vain, that we are part of a chorus, that resilience is in our bones, that peace will prevail on earth and in our hearts, and that healing and grace come like soft rain. Be thou an ever-present strength upon our journeys, and teach us that in falling down, we do rise again. This we ask in the name of all that is holy. May we be together in silence for a moment. May it be so. Amen.
To once again rise in body and/or in spirit so we can sing together our closing hymn, number 6, Just as Long as I Have Breath.
With hope I meet each day.
There will probably be a stretch of wilderness now and then. But wilderness eventually ends, and there is always a new road to take. Remember this, in every corner of the world, there is something to love and something to protect. And if one day it seems nothing beautiful will ever come your way again, trust the rabbit in the field and the deer who crosses your path. Trust the wolf and the wild geese who find their way back home. All these know something about life, that everything is changing, and it is worth waking up in the morning to see what might happen, because life begins small and it grows. Blessed be, go in peace, and please be seated for the postlude.